just like the one up in Capitol Hill, and
Right.
that's a big concern to quite a few folks, So that's on everyone's mind. My multicultural directors, Washington State, we have been meeting and talking about that. How could we support, the movement without getting, without getting the anger, infusing the anger and stuff like that. But I think it's with the younger generation, you know, their request is, hey, leave us alone. This is our time. You guys had your time, and it's hard to speak to the folks that the minds are already made up, and they're very angry. So it's hard to change that. So what I have been doing, with my time is visiting the different different cultures that live here in Whatcom County, especially the Russian community, and the Sikh community. So we have been meeting on the regular to address, this these racial issues, and how could they? Because right now they don't know how to speak, to other folks outside of their culture. So that's a new, a norm for them, So we just kind of start talking about, what could they do to educate, non-Sikh, non-Russian speaking folks, So it has been quite challenging, but very rewarding, for me as you continue, because I believe that that living it is worth more than actually, talking about it, and writing about it, as I keep saying, So we have to get out there and take this the first step, towards treating folks, of different colors, respectfully. And this is not just happening here. Now I spoke about the cultures in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think I spoke too soon. Now there's some sort of a racial stuff going on right now, and it's all because, I mean, it's such a beautiful country, and it's all because of the COVID funds, right? So
Funny.
we have two major parties: is the PNM and the People's National Movement and the United National Congress. So the PNM, the People's National Movement, is predominantly Africans, right? And the UNC is the East Indians. So the Africans has been in power for years, many, many years. And then maybe about 10 years ago, the East Indian took power, right? So what they did was they removed all the Africans um, in the spaces of decision making, and replaced them with all the East Indians. So that kind of it's about party. So it had some create some concerns, but they lasted for 5 years. And then now the PNM, the Africans, now going back in power, and what they did the same thing. you know they remove, there's nothing about the bipartisan, rule of the country. So it really saddens me that now the race has become a very destructive part of my culture that I left and I spoke so highly of. So, and the Africans are in power. So the COVID relief funds are coming, and it's not trickling down to the East Indians, and that's been creating, some divide, and I'm concerned about what's going to happen, coming down as we move forward here, So,
Wow.
yeah, it's a hard one,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Well, I
but
told all these people to bring something that stood out to them, like you
yes,
talked
yeah,
about. So,
let's talk about that. Yeah, you know. Um, Again, my concern too, as we keep going deeper into the book, is the negative messages that's still being, transferred on to this kid, you know, from his dad, and is how does it get better? How does it get better for this little kid? And I'm not sure if you guys read the part where finally they had a vacation in France,
yeah,
right?
here.
And even though when they went down to the alleys, I think he had, if I can remember well, he had a dinner, with one of the folks, the French residents, and they were going down the alley to hang out, just to talk, to visit, to sit and have a conversation. And he was so scared to go down that alley, you know, and wondering if there's some other guys or someone, you know, coming behind them to either, you know, rob them or something like that. So wherever he goes, he's transferring that, you know, that way of life that he grew up with, no fault of his own, you know. But then finally, he's coming to agreeing that that there is, you know, there's life, there's a beautiful life out there, you know, and hopefully the son can see that, you know, and see that they're, you know, they're good people, you know. So, and it's not just restricted to, you know, the treatment that they got, you know, from the U.S. But, you know, what other folks are seeing in this, you know, as we read the second section.
I want to know what it is about Prince Jones that so fascinated him. What was there about Prince? He was a friend, but it was more than that. I mean, he was almost obsessed with him. Of course, maybe more so after Prince was murdered. So I don't know whether it was the murder or whether he was kind of obsessed with him before he started because of the Mecca thing.
I think they had a good friendship, and this is the way in which he was killed, you know, which was murdered, you know, again, very innocently, you know. So, and it kind of hit home for him, you know. So yeah, that's my that was a concern of mine too, you know. I think they were very, very good friends.
Well, to me, I saw Prince as the dream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like he lived in a privileged, almost white type background. At least that's what I got out of reading this. And that he was the upper class that sort of lived like he was a white person.
Mm-hmm.
And which made him different.
And I kind of felt like he thought of him as being twice as good, right? Like young black men and young black children are told they have to be twice as good.
Mm-hmm.
And Prince, I think, to him was twice as good, and still look what happened.
And still, even though he's complying and he's doing what, you know, what he's supposed to be doing, quote unquote, you know, he still got, you know, still got murdered, you know. And even when the other part too, with for me was when he took his kid in the park in the stroller. Did you guys see that? Or did you read that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, so he had the you know, he's afraid to even take his kid, you know, and he's seeing the white folks just taking him, you know, left and right, you know, just enjoying life, and you know, in the strollers, but just to have that, to afford that you know, that luxury of taking his son, you know, to the park. It was a huge, you know, deal for him. You know, he can do it. He can do it.
These are the kind of things that as a white person, we don't understand that fear because we've not had to live it. And that's what I love about this book, is that it has so opened my eyes and shocked me of the things that, well, I should have known that, but back to the education part, how do we help other people understand that and understand what a black man or a young black teenager, young black man has to go through because of our white laws, our white whatever, our customs or whatever.
Yeah. Then what resonated with me too was he says here, being always on guard, you know, you always gotta be concerned. And you know, it's true, because I find myself, you know, when I leave my home and I shut that garage door, it's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to take on whatever comes my way. You know, that shouldn't be at all. You know, not many folks are thinking that, you know, but I have to be on guard, you know, and it's not because of the safety or the law enforcement. It's just a treatment, you know, the inequalities, you know, the systemic racism and all that good stuff that you have to combat out there. And it's we don't have that luxury and privilege, you know, of relaxation, you know, we have to be always on guard. So that really resonated with me. It's true for all, if not most if not all, folks of color. That's how we feel, you know.
You worry about your kids?
Um, we raised them right. We hope that they're treated well, but we still hear the same concerns, being a folk of color, we hear the same concerns. I'm not worried because they have that foundation. They have the foundation, and wherever they go, they're very respectful, regardless to whoever it is, whether it's from their race or another race, they approach people, as human beings. So I think that's going to get them through. And they all have that Christian background. My daughter is married to a pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist faith, in Washington, D.C., and, wife and I took the two boys to church, from as young as, 3-4 years old. So they grew up in the church, and they have, God is definitely in the forefront. We talk about it all the time. So, with his guidance, I think they're going to be all right, but they still have the struggles. And but to be concerned, I don't think I'm really concerned about the negative stuff, like during the riot stuff, during the the riots. I asked my kids to say, how you guys are doing? They're staying home. They say, we're not coming out because, why are we going there? Knowing that it's an unsafe situation, So I think they they know better. They know better. Yeah.
One of the things, Malcolm, that it was not just this particular section of the book, but the first one as well, is how it is all related to power.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that in our country, this kind of divide.
Yes.
And people feel like they, their lifestyle is at risk if the immigrants come in. Their lifestyle is at risk if people of color have more influence.
Yeah.
And so again, it goes back to that. I want to be the one at the top of the heap here.
Yeah.
And I want to have the power to control.
Yeah. It's about power and privilege. And I keep telling folks, getting back to the civility stuff, it's more about who has the say, who has the power. And I think it's more about power and privilege than it's about race. Even all these different institutes, you can say whatever you want. You can ask them, you can say, hey, listen, man, hold them accountable. But until they want to share, and be equitable and be inclusive in all these decision making, is always going to be the same from the top down, So it's, again, talking about the white privilege, I don't think it's really about the color or the race stuff. It's about who's in control. And again, it reflects what's going on in our nation right now. If you speak up or you speak out, you're gone. You're gone. And it's about loyalty. No one wants to hold this guy accountable. And this happens, is not just in the White House, it happens throughout, our different institutes, throughout life. If we hear something that's wrong, we need to be adult enough and human enough to say, hey, listen, that's not right, and not be penalized, ostracized, for holding folks accountable. Yeah.
I'm still left with, so what can I do? What can we do?
There's a song, let there be peace on earth.
Yeah.
Remember that song?
Let it begin.
And let it begin with
Me.
me. We can try to change folks as much as we want to, but that's who they are, it's so ingrained, but if we lead by example, I think it begins with us, But the good part of this second, the second section was when I'm not sure if you guys remember, when he talked to the son about the apology, when he said, I felt so bad, when, being strict, he said when his wife had to teach him, what it is to love, right? And to hug and kiss. And he all this time, he's just preaching this negative stuff, you know, and that gave me hope. He finally realized, you know, that, that, you know, he did wrong. He raised his kid wrong, you know. You know, the time spent being angry could have been time spent hugging this little boy who was deprived of this, you know, for all these years, you know. So that spoke volumes to me.
I also think it was interesting that when he said, when I do that, even now, it feels like ritual.
Yeah, like an act.
I
Yes.
need to do this. Here I have to do A, B, C. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Check the boxes, you know, and it's not from inside, you know, it's from guilt. Yeah. You know.
Well, thank God he found a good woman to balance him off.
Right.
That was one of the things that stood out to me was what would have ever happened with him personally if he hadn't have found somebody who could give him a little bit of balance in his life.
Yeah.
Because you know, I'm not just worried about the boy in this, I'm worried about him until I get to the section that, you know, kind of indicates that there was more influences that came into his life other than his father's belt and you know, all of these things that he was taught himself. And he was a product of his own upbringing and his own family. And of course, going all the way back to where Black people came from and why.
Yeah.
What?
And that's all he knew. And then, so I had hope. I was happy that he's apologizing to his son. And then in the next section, they talked about, you know, he's telling him we're the product of transatlantic rape. You know, such harsh language. You know, I mean, the lady who birthed you, that's supposed to be a beautiful experience. Transatlantic rape. That is heavy language for a kid, you know? So sometimes I figure the more educated we are, you know, the far more removed from common sense, you know, that we are. Yeah. You know, so.
Except I have to say that it's those moments of absolute stark reality that is hitting me every time I turn around to this book. Because again, I guess I've been wrapped up in my own way of thinking it is in the world, whether in my world or your world or other world. And you're breaking through it, or this book is breaking through everything like that and making me see what's really in a Black man's heart.
Yeah.
Especially about his child, about his life, about what he thought he had to offer.
Yeah.
But
at some point, though, you know, he says here, and I have a little note. It said that stealing the right for him to smile. How could you allow someone to steal your joy? You know, it's given, you know, the individual so much power, you know, over you.
Yep.
You know, and who could you blame? I mean, I'm not going to blame the other folks. I blame you because you're in control of what you do, you know? So, but I feel really bad, you know, and as at some point, I would have to apologize, you know, to my African-American folks. And, you know, I've done that and, you know, subtle apologies, you know, because you know, I was not born here. You know, so I try so hard to understand, you know, the struggles, you know, even though these acts are perpetrated to me, I get it. I get it because of the color of my skin, you know, I get it, you know, but it's not deep enough to really understand, you know, the Black body that they talk about, the Black skin that they talk about, that's been used, you know, to build all these different, you know, buildings, the White House, you know, and slave labor, and they capitalize, you know, on the slave labor. You know, it goes really, really, really deep, you know. But I'm saying, how do we move forward? How do we move forward? You know, we could be stuck in this little, this slavery days for many, many years to come, and it's not a very comfortable, and soothing feeling at all. It's not.
I'm curious, Malcolm. You said
Yeah.
you have done some work with the Sikh community in
Mhm.
the county here. I see the Sikh community as really trying to reach out to develop bridges of understanding.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, as you work with them, are they frustrated that people aren't getting it and people still think they're Muslim, or people still think, this or that about them, and they're just a movement of peace if there ever was one? But, how do you educate people who don't want to be educated about these things?
Well, we still have the dispatchers still getting calls from different areas. Hey, there's someone with a terrorist with a turban walking our neighborhood, right? And we have to educate them and say, hey, listen, man, on a Sunday, 4 o'clock, spring day, this guy and his family's taking a walk, just like anyone takes a walk, you know? So no, this looks different. This looks different. They got the turban on. They got the turban on, you know? So, but I think the Sikh community is extremely guarded, extremely guarded. I mean, they're very, very private, you know, um, but they're trying to reach out and educate folks about Sikhism. They have all these different events. Again, 5 temples here in Whatcom County, and they have events at the Smith Road, the Bellingham, by Home Depot, and they got one in Northwest, and then there's a one on the Poor Road and one down on Birchville Linden. And they have these events that they welcome folks, there to the events. And if you stop by any temple or gurdwara, as they call it, any day of the week, any time of the day, there's a meal for you. They're big in feeding people. They said no one's going to go hungry. You come in there, regardless red, yellow, black, or white, regardless of where you're from, they're going to take care of you and they're going to welcome you into the community. I think with our new county executive, that kind of shed some light now on the actual community, because he's already started part in the community for years. I've worked with him for many years, since after the 9/11, when they try to torch the the Pole Road Temple, so, but they're trying to get out there and be more visible, but folks for some reason just don't understand. Just like I hear folks concerned about, well, they're coming in and taking everything because they have all these corner stores. These folks work hard. They work very hard for what they have. Every summer, I go to the berry fields, and I ride on these machines and I watch these guys work. They work hard, 24/7. They're up, making sure the spray is correct. And the berries are ready to pick and, and to harvest and all that good stuff. It's a lot of hard work, gets into, to the agriculture. Yeah. But as I said, they're ready to come out, and, they're just kind of waiting for folks to, come and have the conversation with them. And we can't just wait for them to come to us, right? We need to go to them. And if you guys ever want to create an opportunity, you just let me know. I'll just, arrange to have you guys come out there and visit, the temples and hear about Sikhism.
Well, when the one near Home Depot opens, we're about 2 blocks from there, our church.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So we're hoping to be able to do some things in common.
Yeah.
And reach out with a welcome. I know they're extremely welcoming, as you said.
And something as simple as, do you have board meetings with church? Something as simple as, requesting one of their meeting rooms to get out there and have a board meeting. I did that with the school district. Get out there, have a meeting with the board meeting. What they do the first half, they show you around, they explain to you, what Sikhism is, and they give it a tour. And then they leave you to do, to have meetings and stuff there. So they're up to any visitors that's coming through.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Interfaith did that, probably 3 or 4 years before I left, which makes it almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wonderful experience. I didn't realize that they did that all the time.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful experience.
Another close community is the Russian community, and all it takes is a phone call. You know, hey, pastor, I'd like to come in and have a conversation, and they would just say, come on in. Have a translator ready for you. But for the most part, the young kids now are translating for the older kids. So I mean, it's not that uncommon at all to have them have translators ready. Yeah.
So it's really up to us to start reaching out to these things that are available to bring us together to understand each other.
As I'm saying, don't wait for the call. You guys go there. Just make the appointments. That's what I do. I just kind of get inside there. I'm coming in. I'd love to know more about you. They ask me, why do you want to come here? I said, well, I want to know more about your culture, to understand. But they're very accepted, very, very accepted. When I first came to Whatcom County, they told me not to go to Linden. Right? and I listened, and my picture this, my route was, I go to up Meridian Street, take a right on Smith Road, and a ride back down Hannigan. Never ever ventured past Smith Road until one day I say, hey, wait a minute, this is God's country. And I called the mayor of Linden, and I asked him, I said, can I come and have a conversation with you? Well, is everything okay? Because I told him, I said, I'm with Governor Locke and the African American Commission. I think that kind of scared him for a bit. Is everything okay? I said, yes, it's okay. I just want to come out and hang with you. And I went there and welcome. It was such a welcome. And I just go to Linden, just to go to Linden, driving down Main Street. There's no Klan members coming to get me. It's like, where are you guys? They say you're here. So. And I tell my brothers and sisters, get out there. It's part of God's country, and it's a beautiful place to be. And I don't listen to the Dutch this and the Dutch that, I want to enjoy Whatcom County. So I go there. As long as you go with open arms, and with love in your heart, there shouldn't be anything other than acceptance. So. Anything else about the book that resonated with you?
Well, I was thinking about with Prince Jones about how they investigate the victim instead of investigating the police.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't believe police are ever in danger. It's that we expect protesters to be peaceful, but we don't necessarily expect our police to be nonviolent.
Yeah. And it's just that small minority that gets in the protests, the goodwill protests, and just cause havoc. It's just it's just a handful of folks that make it bad for the folks who want to get in there and make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, but the police come with tear gas and guns and all that.
But again, they come for the ones that's causing problems, and escalate things.
Not necessarily.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they attack the nonviolent protesters.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, then that's definitely wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then they use the excuse that they're scared for their lives. Right?
Right.
Yeah, his sentence, I knew that Prince was not killed by a single officer so much as he was murdered by his country and all the fears that have marked it from birth.
Yeah.
I thought that was very powerful.
I wrote that down too,
The system.
The system, exactly.
Yeah.
Another one that I have marked is the right to break the bodies was the mark of civilization.
Yeah.
That struck a note. And I have to say that whether it was the metaphor or the bodies being, well, we use the body of Christ a lot, but the bodies was conglomerate versus, but everything we do to one man is what we're doing to the bodies of that community or of that.
Yeah, and that we've used Black bodies to build our nation.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They've been our money, basically.
starting with cotton, I think he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote down too, it is heritage to destroy the black body. That was another
Mhm.
that was right in that same
Yeah.
part.
I found it interesting that he didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't disclose that that was a black officer until well
Right.
into the story.
Yeah.
And so we got to make our own assumptions. And then
Yeah.
that led him into talking about black on black violence
Yeah.
and how that's when people buy into this narrative that has been kind of put in front of them their whole lives. And then they become scared of themselves almost.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Malcolm,
I-
when you were saying something about fear, and when your fear isn't released until you're in your garage and your garage door is closed behind you, that's
Mhm.
something that I have done because I was taught early on that people will come in behind your car and
Mhm.
sneak in behind you, and you won't know they're there until you close your garage door. So
Right. But that's the difference. Go ahead.
I think that that's something that's been built into a lot of our psyches, that
Mhm.
fear. And so
Yeah.
we have to be on guard, whether we're women or people of color or people living in a city. We have fear just bred into us.
Yeah. Well, that fear is a different, it's two sets of fear that I feel. I mean, the one, you got to make sure that they get in the garage and look back and make sure because you know the unknown, you know, what's
Yeah.
in the unknown out there. But the other fear I'm talking about is that societal, you know, how am I being looked at when I get out of my garage, you know, and the door is closed, you know, what am I facing? You know, once I get out there as a folk of African descent, you know, and but again, if I go too deep into it, if I think too much, then it sort of impede, you know, my attitude to, you know, to have fun and to smile. That's when folks take your smile away from you, you know, when it lives inside your head, you know, you're so consumed, you know, with this type of societal fear, you know, that you don't have time to enjoy. And I have a saying that the privilege, the luxury and privilege of relaxation does not apply for everyone. So not everyone can go about the business, I mean, like, you know, nonchalantly, you know, and, you know, some of us really have to be on guard, you know, and it's not just about the police, you know, it's just about life, you know, this systemic, you know, racism, it has to be dismantled, you know, and, you know, we as allies need to look out for each other and look out for brothers and sisters from different, you know, but there's differences, you know, background.
I was looking for it in the book and I couldn't find it, but I think it's in the section when he talks about how there are no African spirituals for him. Basically, he's saying that there was nothing that would lift his spirits. And when I read it, I just thought he's been so beaten down
Yeah.
and so demoralized by the system in which he was brought up. And that was another thing that hit me really hard. And I thought he's just one person that has
Right,
experienced this.
right.
And we have a whole nation of people
Mhm.
full of people who have experienced that.
And my concern is it's handed down
Right.
and it's going on and on, because what do you think his son is going to talk about? His son he can't speak about, you know, going into to Walmart and having a good time to his kid. No, that's how this little kid was brought up, and that's what really saddens me. How do we move, you know, forward from this way of thinking? You know, and I would love to have a conversation with this author, you know, at some point. I would love to, you know, is there anything good that's happening in your life?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, when you
Well,
look at 400 plus years on your shoulders, on your personal shoulders, because whatever you do
yeah,
is not just you.
yeah.
He
Well-
did talk about how the suffering led to diamonds of, I forget how he worded it, but he was talking about the blessings he has from the culture that developed as a result of the experiences.
Yeah. Sometimes I take my walk and I said, you folks are so important, in this fight, in this struggle. I take my walks in the neighborhood and it's so beautiful to see these yard signs. I'm not sure if you guys see them, the Black Lives Matter.
We have one on our church right now.
Yeah, so I walk by and in summertime or fall, early fall, and folks are having their barbecue and stuff, and the signs are out, and they congregate outside of the deck or what have you. And here's Malcolm passing by, right? And I said, don't forget, put an extra steak on for me. They said, come on, brother, come on, and I just say, thank you for your support. That's all I say to thanks for your support, and each time I walk, they look for me. They look for me. Oh, yeah, how you doing, neighbor? And, and that kind of stuff. That's where it starts. That's where it starts, We're so fearful of each other. The black man's coming down the neighborhood, you run. Yeah. No, come out and say, hi, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Well, Malcolm, you are one of the most positive people I think I've ever met. And I'm curious, because you just have this positive attitude of we can get through this if we're friendly, if we're open.
Yes.
But I'm wondering how you assess these past 4 years, the shift from, before these past 4 years and these past 4 years, how has that impacted you as a person of color? The freedom, I think, that certain people have felt like they could come out of the woodwork and spout this hate language. How has that impacted you personally?
Again, it's my attitude. Walking with God. It's my attitude. We can't change these folks' mind. My disappointment is, folks are afraid to speak up. And then again, to use the example with our current, president, because I hate to get political. There's a meeting that they have with the cabinet ministers, and he referred to the African nations as these S to the whole, right? Everyone heard him utter those words. Not one person says, hey, we out of here. When you apologize, we're going to come back. Not one person said that. They all kind of grinned and kind of half smiled, and it was okay. Again, silence is betrayal. You're encouraging that kind of stuff if you remain silent, So, yeah. And the sad reality is, this is not just restricted to the White House. It's in our institutes. Folks are seeing injustice being handed out, and they're afraid to speak up because we're going to lose our jobs. Right? But if you go as with the mob mentality, and everyone, all employees speak up and say, hey, listen, man, this is wrong. They can't fire everyone. So we can't get out there individually. We can't get out there individually, but collectively, we sure can make a difference, And again, what I was raised with mom and dad, at every night, we had this little cool breeze, nighttime, and instead of the porch, we call it the gallery, So we'd be in the gallery, and I'll be downstairs in my room, and I'll be just hearing mom and dad in the gallery, getting that, after the shower, and then to get that breeze, just enjoying it, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and it never fails. He would always put on that Perry Como, and suddenly he would sing, and I love you so. People ask me how. And what I found myself doing, I came home a couple of nights ago, put on the entire Perry Como and Andy Williams album, and because mom and dad died, and it came right back, and that's it, So, negative is not going to win. It's not going to beat me at all. It's not, because we weren't raised that way. Yeah.
No.
Wow.
Anything else? For the good of the order.
I just want to say, I don't think I've been in a meeting where Marvin has been so quiet.
I know it, Marvin.
That's all right. That's all right.
He's taking it all in.
I was thoroughly impressed, sort of like Marianne. I did not understand the issue of black bodies until I read this, and I'm interested in your comments about him being negative with his son.
Mhm.
And I hadn't thought about it that way, and I'll have to review that again and think about that, because
Yeah.
I saw what he was doing as a way of trying to protect his son and to interpret for his son what he was experiencing and what he was going to experience.
Yeah.
And that I hadn't thought about it as being negative.
Yeah. Well, if if as a kid or even as an individual, if you keep getting all these messages about, your experience is going to be negative, this is what's going on in your life, this is what's going to happen, this is what's been happening for 400 years, how could he think positive from that? That's my question. How could he be positive? At some point, there must be some light, there must be some light to these conversations.
Well, that reminds me of the lady who survived Germany, and what was her name? Not Naomi.
Naomi.
Noemi.
Noemi.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Noemi
Noemi Bond, yeah.
Bond.
She had the most positive attitude for someone who had been under the Nazi rule and mistreated by them all and everything. She had a positive attitude, and it was amazing to me, because I just don't know that I can be that forgiving. But yeah, I understand what you're saying about positivity.
Yeah. But the message is true. The message that he's given his son is the truest. I mean, it's a raw form. It is true. This is our
Exactly.
experience.
Yeah.
And we can't negate that. It is our experience, But my question is, how do we move that needle into that positive light? How do we move it? Because we're gonna be stuck,
Well, it's the same way because that's the way it was hitting me. It is the most truthful,
Yes.
right to your gut
Yeah.
blow that I have ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it makes me say, okay, now I've got to do something about me and about what's going on, but that's what you're saying. How can he, if he's saying that to his son, then how are you telling them to cope with it?
Mm-hmm. And those are what we call the hard conversation. Not many folks are ready for that conversation. And how can we move forward if we don't have it?
Right.
Yeah.
And something I quoted not too long ago said the hardest thing in sitting with white Americans is getting to start talking about racism.
Oh boy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we white people don't want to talk about racism. We want to say, well, yeah, that's going on, but not me.
Mhm.
Not the people I know.
We've been having some discussions here in the community of Kent about how our police force is trained, and there was a forum online the other night about this, and the interesting thing to me was that what I'm going to say about human nature, we have to have de-escalation training for our police officers, and it's like the untrained human instinct is to do all of these things that oppress someone else.
Right.
Because I have the power, I have the gun, I have the authority behind me, and we have to train policemen not to instinctively be violent.
Right.
And so what does that say about human nature? Is human nature undisciplined? Is it violent? And what is the discipline that changes that violence to something that is more positive? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is
I
that
wonder,
Go ahead, Tam.
Oh, I'm wondering if part of human nature is to be protective, but our brains perceive things wrong and we're protecting the wrong things. I'm protecting my own perceived little in-group, and I forget that those other people are also part of my community.
Yeah.
And it goes to that perception.
That's
We're
a
protecting their perception.
yeah, that's another perspective, Tam, on what, you know, if I'm a police person and I have the gun and I have the authority and I'm not going to be prosecuted like I should be if I use my power wrongly. You know, then my, no, I'm not sure where that goes, but I was just thinking about, is human nature non-violent, or are we violent, protective of our own, like you were saying, Tam? But when it becomes violence against someone of another race, it's partly because I don't see them as my own.
Or I have very violent feelings when I think someone's harming one of my own, like my kids or my
Yep.
spouse or my siblings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I
Well,
think
fear is such a driver, and that you talk about the protectiveness. I think when we step out the door, we go, are we afraid or not afraid? You
Yeah.
know, and then our actions follow.
Well, and Tamlin, to your point, you might have those violent feelings, but you're not carrying around military grade weapons.
Yeah.
And when we militarize
Mm-hmm.
our police force,
Yep.
Yeah.
Not that that's a natural outcome, but it certainly makes it, I think, challenging for them to, de-escalate when, their whole body is full of all of this, deadly ammunition.
Like everything out there is a combat zone, and I'm going into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not everything is a combat zone.
Mm-hmm.
The mentally ill problems
Yeah.
do not belong in
My,
a combat zone.
Exactly. My neighbor and friend is retired law enforcement and worked for the Whatcom County Sheriff's Department for years and years and years. And he said he noticed a very distinct change through the years as, especially when the department hired former soldiers
Yes.
to be on the department, and they wanted military grade weapons.
Yep.
And they asked for and requested, military grade weapons. And that leads to a different kind of policing.
Yeah. And
Actually, we have had such Whatcom County police officers, law enforcement, I ride with these folks and I hear the conversations that they have with criminals. It's always, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Very, very cordial, right? And I had an interaction with, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Chief Randy Carroll. He is Bellingham Police Chief.
Yeah, I agree.
And I used to live on 1019 Indian Street. And, and I worked at St. Luke's Hospital in the housekeeping, as I said earlier on. And it took me maybe a minute by car or a few minutes walking. So I was watching a welterweight title fight, Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard, and I had to go to work for 3 o'clock, but I want to hear the decision. So I was late, all right, in getting to work. What I did, I jumped in my Chevy Impala and I went the one-way street.
Oh, yeah.
Because, Chestnut, right? One way. But it was, so when I got there and there's a one-way street getting into St. Luke's Hospital, I just went into one-way street there. And I saw the lights. I'm just saying, yeah, right, I'm not stopping. So I went in the back and I parked by the Essential Supplies. And there's Randy Carroll. He was a patrol officer then, very handsome guy, So he stopped me. He said, young man, he said, didn't you know that you were going up a one-way street? I said, really? Where? And I said, I started acting foolish. I said, one-way street, where? So he says, we started talking. So he said, are you from this area? I said, no, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. And he took out his notepad. He started writing stuff. I said, yeah, I got it, boy. He wants to go visit that country and go to the beaches and stuff. So I started telling him everything about Venezuela and all this stuff. And he's taking copious notes. And at the end, he said, here, there's a ticket. I said, are you kidding me? You know, he said, I tell you, my friend, he said, you pay the ticket and then we'll hang out. So, but after that, I had this reggae band and we played. I told him about the band and we played at the taverns and stuff. So he want to come and hear me. So when he came to the door, he want to get there and say, you pay, and then we'll have a conversation, you know? So after we had a little, you know, conversation, he turned to be my best friend, you know? And I'm now the chair of the advisory council for Bellingham Police Department. But these are the kind of interactions I'm talking about. It's fun. It is fun. You know, no need to dip for he could have gone for his gun, you know, and I could have been uncomfortable and started fighting and arguing with this police officer. But it was a cordial conversation. And we always talk about that. He was the one that says, I'm going to come to Ferndale. I got your back, Malcolm. I got your back. I said, no, Randy. When I came out, hiding behind the tree was Chief Randy Carroll, you know? And that was the relationship that we had. So they're not all bad folks, just a few bad apples.
Right.
It's in there, yeah. And make it bad. So.
Well, I think one of the things, and going back to Renee's comment about militarization, I think we've put such an emphasis on the protect part of protect and serve.
Yeah.
You don't serve with military grade weapons. You serve by what that exchange you had with Randy.
Right.
That's service.
Yes.
And following up, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are talking about when they say, maybe not defund the police, but reallocate some of them.
Yeah.
So that we put more of an emphasis on the service.
Right.
That the authorities, they're going to interact with us whether we like it or not. But if they came into it with I'm here to help.
Yes.
Not if you're going down the wrong way in a one-way street, obviously, but domestic situations and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, it's about the conversations, though. You know, they say it's you can't get a second chance to make a first impression. You know, I always believe in that. You know, so and I think, you know, we're living in a really good community. You know, and we can't change what happens, you know, back in Baltimore and them places, but we can sure take care of Whatcom County. And that's where we need to focus, you know. I guess we just got to pray for everyone else, you know, and hope things, you know, work out, you know, but yeah.
I can't imagine what it would be like to be a Black parent. And I'm thinking particularly of a Black mother because I'm a female. Mm-hmm. Living in one of those areas and worrying every time your son and I think Black girls are probably at risk too, and daughters, but worrying every single time your kid goes out the door to go somewhere, that's got to be terrible.
And that was one of the main reasons why I left New York City. You know, so I left, you know, the Northwest because of the black and white stuff to go back to my folks, you know, the folks on the islands. But it's the same old party scene that goes on back there, and the sirens and the guns, and you know, in Bedford-Stuy, you know, and Brooklyn. And I say, hey, pops, this is not working. It's not working. But fortunately, you know, we had the Swansons from Bellingham, Washington. You know, not many folks have that opportunity, you know, to be connected. So that's why I'm just saying that we just have to be ready when that time comes, you know, to reach out and help folks who, you know, who's stretching their hands out, you know, because I say there's a lot of hand holding, not spoon feeding, just a hand holding, you know, folks need, you know, smooth handoff, you know, to get a good shot at life, you know. So, I mean, some of them would never get out of the cities, never, you know, under crime. Yeah.
Brenda?
Yeah.
If you were a low-income mother who lived in the projects and, you know, had a limited income from government assistance, you'd have some of the same fears when your children went out if they were white, because it's not just a racial thing, it's a social economic thing too. That people that are on the low end, white people that are on the low income bracket are discriminated against by white officers or black officers or brown officers or whatever, or teachers or whatever, in some of the same ways that people of color are.
That's true. That's right.
And that's why I tell my brothers and sisters too, I said, not all white folks are privileged.
Yeah.
Not everyone at all. So the white face don't get you where you want to go. So socioeconomic status is a very, a good example of that.
Well, and I think that goes back to an earlier conversation we had this morning, not all of us, sorry, about the fear of the homeless. Now, that doesn't make any sense, but that's real. People are afraid of the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a socioeconomic thing. If they're
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And yet one of the things, and I want to complete this quote that I got somehow rudely, I was taken out. Because I think it really does come down to, well, let me let it speak for itself. The poor as well as the rich belong to the upper class. Now this is for the white people. And we are respected and treated as equals. And there it is, the right to break the black body as the meaning of our sacred equality. And the message that I think is just perfect, that someone down in the valley, that these let's see, the black body, but someone down in the valley, because a mountain is not a mountain if there is nothing below.
Mhm.
And in saying that, I know a song that says, everybody's got to have somebody to look down on.
Mhm.
Yep.
And what this one is saying is that even the poorest of a white person is still regarded
Yes.
as more important and
Yes.
better than
Mhm.
the black
There's-
person.
Mhm. They're still white.
Yep.
Yeah. And I had this happen one time with some quote friends, that I was in her parents' house, her mother's house, and they lived under the bridge in New Albany, which means the bridge was going over to Kentucky. Under the bridge was probably the worst place you could want to live. And this 10-year-old son come in and had been playing with a black kid from down the street, and his mother gave him holy hell for playing with the black kid.
Yeah.
And suddenly I realized everybody's got to have somebody looked down upon.
But you know what's funny though? In kindergarten, they just love each other.
Yeah.
In kindergarten, they just love each other
Yeah.
until
Yeah, they don't
something
get
start happening.
Unless there's a parent back there that has told them you cannot play with him because he's black.
Yes, they have the sleepovers, and as soon as he start to grow, folks feel threatened.
Now, my daughter, when we moved from Maine to Kentucky, my ex took my daughter to a preschool, and she comes out of preschool. Mom, these are my friends. They're black.
Yes. Innocence of the kids. Yes.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, things change. Don't bring that black kid here.
Yeah.
But as I said, before we wrap up, don't be afraid of these conversations. Just as we just rocking back in our chairs and, enjoying each other's company, transfer that into everyday life. This conversation should be as casual as, okay, honey, what do you want for breakfast this morning? It needs to be that simple. Don't be afraid. Be the example, set the examples, lead by example, And it's just going to trickle down. Folks going to realize that it's not a mystery. It's there, and to make it better, we have to address it. We can't skirt the issue. We can't hide from it. It's around us, and then it's going to be predominantly folks of color. Somewhere down the line, it's going to be more of us. And I think that's what most white folks are afraid of. What they're going to do, once they become in power. And that shouldn't be. If you treat folks with respect, regardless of who's in power, they're going to treat you the same way, in power, not in power, So, but I learned a lot from these two sections. I'm looking forward to diving into the third one, and having that discussion, with you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Malcolm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
thank you so
great.
much. And happy holidays to you.
And as Perry Como would say, and I love you so. Have a great rest of the week.
Yeah, see
Yeah,
you
me
again.
too.
Barry.
Yeah.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thanks.
Night, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night.
Bye-bye.